Hey there, Rappies. Rapper9198 here, and welcome to another edition of Ryan's Date Reading. Today I'll be reading Chapter 7 of Imprints, the evidence our lives leave behind, which is titled Bending Time. So that'll be very interesting, I think. And again, I want to start off with a recap of the previous chapter titled Flowers. It was talking about two women, Betty and Karen. I know Betty was doing a volunteer work in a hospital, and she met can't remember how old Betty was, but I know she recently retired. She had retired. And Karen was in her 30s. I remember that. I know, again, I'm trying to practice my comprehension skills. I know, never been the best at that, so just bear with me. But it's always good to recap on what happened before moving ahead to the next thing. So just bear with me there. But anyways, yeah, Betty she retired after 40 some years. I know she was doing if I can remember. I'm so sorry. I know I have to. Yeah, geez, yeah, okay. Sorry, she worked as a grade school teacher. Gosh, I know So yeah, Betty retired from being a teacher, and before was doing a lot of gardening and was just spending her time really at home in her greenhouse, and she had a lot of flowers. But anyways, she started doing volunteer work, and she ended up volunteering at a hospital, and there she met a younger woman in her 30s named Karen, and that Betty just happened to overhear a conversation, and then Betty went and grabbed some flowers and brought them and gave them to Karen. And Karen was like, "How did you know?" And it turned out, and I remember this one, that her favorite flowers, Karen's favorite type of flowers are lilies. And it was also Betty's favorite types of flowers too. And it was pretty ironic that the reason why Karen's favorite flowers are daisies is because she had a daughter who died from leukemia, and her name was Lily. And so I think those flowers really help commemorate the memory of Karen's daughter Lily. And I know Lily was very young when she died. I think, yeah, when she was 6, she developed leukemia and then died a year later. So I think, sounds like she was 7 when she died. And so yeah, and then, lilies, I guess, are Karen's way to help her commemorate the memory of Lily. All right, so now we go to Chapter 7, titled Bending Time. And then again, there's always a quote from somebody at the top under here. So this is from John Dewey. "Time and memory are true artists. They remold reality nearer to the heart's desire." So, okay, that makes sense. Bending, molding, like that totally makes sense. I can see the metaphor there. All right, here we go. Chapter 7. Albert Einstein was born on March 14th, 1879 in the city of Ulm, in what was then the German Empire. From an early age, he demonstrated an aptitude for mathematics and physics, soon reaching an understanding far beyond that of his peers. At 12, Einstein developed a passion for geometry and algebra and started teaching himself advanced mathematics, and by age 14, he had mastered integral and differential calculus. Understanding and applying existing branches of science and math weren't enough for Einstein. He needed to create new ones to explain the unexplainable. As a result, he developed a host of theories throughout his scientific career that would eventually revolutionize our understanding of mathematics and physics. Perhaps his most famous ones are his theories of relativity. One of those is the theory of general relativity. His widely accepted idea is essentially a geometric theory of gravity and is the foundation for the current description and understanding of gravity in physics. The details can be explained by complex mathematics, but suffice it to say that general relativity defines gravity as a geometric property of space and time. It's because of Einstein's ideas that scientists suspected the existence of black holes, areas in space where a powerful gravitational force so heavily distorts space and time that nothing can escape, not even light. When this happens, different points of space and time can be brought together, or so the theory goes. If you're like us, this is a bit difficult to conceptualize, but you're wondering what it might look like. Picture a blanket drawn tight at the corners. When you drop a marble on the fabric, there's little effect. The marble bounces while the blanket doesn't seem to move at all. But dropping a bowling ball on the blanket, the force draws areas of the fabric toward the point of impact, bringing otherwise distant sections of the fabric very close together, so close they might even touch. Life is not so different, but swap out the bowling ball for everyday encounters and occurrences, and trade the blanket for the fabric of our lives. A tapestry made up of all our memories and histories, the events that have made us who we are. The two of us have traveled all over the world together, and it never ceases to amaze us how our senses can take us back to scientific places or replay distant experiences in our minds. Each time we walk by a bakery with baguettes, the aroma of the fresh, warm bread sparks memories of strolling down a side street in Paris with our wives. The cafes con leche at Azucar in San Diego transport us to any of the cafes along the Camino de Santiago in Spain. And any song from Muse's album, Origin of Symmetry, has us reminiscing about our trip to Europe in 2001, where we first discovered the band in a small record store in Munich. So yeah, this is Justin and Patrick who they're talking about. This is like their point of view. Is when I say the two of us, it's Patrick and Justin, just to make clear. The human mind is an incredible creation. It can learn things as complicated as physics or calculus, catalog scientific facts, comprehend complex analogies, and create beautiful works of fiction or stunning pieces of art. And yet, in the blink of an eye, the notes of a song, the flavor of a cup of coffee, or the aroma of fresh baked bread can hijack whatever is going on inside our heads and take us to a place we haven't thought about in weeks, months, or even years. Yeah, and that's one of these other quotes on the side of the pages here. You know, Very interesting how the mind works, in my opinion. And I'm sure that's a very universal opinion as well. So much can be going on, and yet one little thing in true is that it's like, ooh, takes us somewhere else in our minds. All right. Childhood was a wonderful time for the two of us. Years filled with having friends over for dinner, sleepovers on weekends, or holiday breaks, birthday parties, and adventures in the fields beyond our homes. We went camping and hiking, rode our bikes across town, and swam at the community pool on hot summer days. And now that we are both parents, the joy continues when one of our children has a friend over after school, builds a fort in the garage with a neighbor, climbs a tree with their siblings, or experiences something new on vacation. Every day they are creating memories, much like we did as kids. If you listen to the young ones in your life, rarely does a day go by where the words, "Do you remember? That reminds me of," or "last time we," aren't a part, yeah, yeah, aren't a part of their conversations. They're excited to recall the fun games they create and the adventures they find themselves on. But kids aren't just keeping track of the good times. Fights with brothers and sisters, altercations on the playground with a bully, and moments where they feel unjustly disciplined moments where they feel unjustly disciplined are tracked inside their minds, sometimes subconsciously. But rest assured, those memories are there. Children process their life experiences every second of every day. Each moment finds its way into a mental catalog of situations stored somewhere inside the brain, and each of those memories can be recalled at a moment's notice, and sometimes without warning. All right, and this is another story here. This is a girl named Maggie. Maggie grew up in a typical neighborhood filled with boys and girls her age, running down the streets, riding bikes in the cul-de-sac, and playing hide and seek late into summer evenings. Every night, she rested her head on a pillow in her own room, where she had a bed that kept her warm on cold winter nights. There was always food on the table and clothes on her back. Maggie's mother cared for her and her brother and sister with love and compassion, making sure their needs were met, teaching them right from wrong, and nurturing them through each stage of life. Maggie's relationship with her mom, brother, and sister brought desperately needed stability to her world, because Maggie's father was far from stable. He drank a lot. He was depressed most of the time, and he saw little good in the life he lived or the family he was supposed to love. Though Maggie's dad never laid a hand on her, her 18 years at home were filled with verbal and emotional abuse. Words of the worst kind about her worth or lack thereof. She and her siblings suffered all types of fear and insecurity, even as their mother tried to protect them. Family vacations were things to try to forget rather than cherished memories. Driving lessons turned into lessons about how stupid the children were. Neither Maggie nor her siblings could do anything right in the eyes of their hatred-filled father. And the wounds created by years of hostility and rage were deep. In college, Maggie fell in love with a young man whom she eventually married. His name was Stephen. Stephen was nothing like Maggie's father, but he knew more than he cared to about the man. Like any couple, Stephen and Maggie had disagreements where angry words were exchanged and apologies were needed. In the heat of one argument, Stephen lost his temper, raised his voice far more than necessary, and yelled at Maggie in frustration and anger. Her face, filled with indignation just a moment before, was suddenly overcome with fear. Convulsing sobs overtook her as Stephen looked on. Confused by the drastic change in his wife, things calmed down. Apologies were accepted, and the couple began to unpack what had just happened. They decided to go to counseling, and Stephen soon learned that though he hadn't uttered a single word about Maggie's worth, his anger-filled voice and seemingly uncontrolled temper had taken her back in time to a moment when her father stood over her and unleashed his rage. Stephen's behavior had caused Maggie's worst memories to surface. And here's another big message from the page. That's what these are on the sides here. Sorry, I guess they really want those messages to really stick out. Events of magnitude often come with a rush of emotion. Whether good or bad, they have the power to take us back to situations or experiences from years before as the past and present collide. So yeah, it's basically that's what's happened there. Some people have been lucky enough to be raised in a healthy home, escaping the 1 in 4 chance of abuse, the trauma of neglect, and having to wonder where their next meal would come from. I am one of those people who have escaped that 1 in 4 chance, because I was raised in a very happy, healthy home, and everybody should be fortunate. And while we're on that note, before I go any further, I just want to say that my heart goes out to everybody who has grown up in an unhealthy home. Wherever you're at, may God bless you. Hopefully, if you're adults, adults of adult children now who are living on their own and have families of their own, I hope that you've been able to find peace, and I hope that I hope you've been able to receive help, therapy, support, whatever it takes to get you to a place where you can feel your self-worth. Because I know a lot of that is, usually abuse from parents can definitely be a generational thing. Like, they probably got it from their family, from their parents, and then their parents from their parents, and so on and so forth. Because it's something that is mostly, in most cases, something that's handed down, and it's based on experience, what little children see growing up, and they believe that that's normal, that's how it's supposed to go. And it's really a shame that. But it would be great to be able to break that cycle. And also I want to say about in regards, because I've heard many different stories about abuse. Like, I've definitely watched a lot of different talk shows, and I know, right? Shocker. but I've seen there's like a lot of there's a lot of YouTube videos. There's like full episodes of old talk shows from like back in the 90s. Because that's kind of the decade where a lot of daytime talk shows were really popular. And there was a lot of different stories about that. Usually it was about husbands abusing their wives, and it's really just husbands abusing their wives, and then they either don't think that it's going to affect if they have children. I feel like there's a lot of husbands, well, not even just abuse, but husbands who cheat on their wives too. And I do sometimes feel like all men are stereotyped based on that kind of stuff. That all men are cheaters and abusive and liars and all that. But it's not the case. I don't want to, I feel like, and even if I feel like I say that, nobody's going to believe it. I feel like also with you guys, people who watch my channel, I feel like you guys are able to know me to an extent, or at least to that point where I'm being honest when I say I'm not one of those people. Because very thankfully, and very fortunately, I have grown up in a happy and healthy family. I've told my dad's story about all that he went through. I mean, he didn't grow up in an abusive family at all, but I just mean really just from the tragic loss of his first wife and his mother, and also a pet dog that he had at the time that he loved very much, all within a few weeks of each other. It was in a very short amount of time. There were 3 major losses in his life. I've said it was way back in 91, so this is even before he met my mom. But I also, because again, I think that what happened with him there made him, I want to say that I can't really speak for him, but again, I always like to share his story. I know he doesn't like it when I talk about it, because I know my dad was a very private guy. And again, Dad, if you're listening to me, I'm sorry if you don't want me talking about it, but that story has always stuck with me. And I think it's a very inspiring story about hope, because my dad didn't lose hope, because he even said he felt he didn't have a point in living anymore. He was sitting at the house that he lived in at the time. He was in his late 40s at that time, and it was, and we live in Minnesota. And it was during the big blizzard that happened in 91, and so he was just stuck at home all by himself after suffering 3 major losses in his life, and he was at such a low point at that time, but he never lost hope, and it just took a few more years, and then 5 years later he met my mom at his work, because she was working there part-time while she was going to school for her master's in education. And then another 2 years later, they had me, and then, because I was born in September, and then they got married in October of that year in 98. And then, the rest is history there. And then also they had my sister in 2001. Yeah, and then the rest there the rest is history there. And so I always think about kind of that whole story of how, I mean, I don't know all the details, and I'm not going to share all the details, but I just still want to just really express my love and send my heart, love, thoughts, and prayers to all those people who have been abused by a parent or by a spouse, especially young children who have been victims of abuse by a parent, either mom or dad, or a step parent, or maybe also grandparents, foster parents, whatever, whoever is helping to care for you and bring you up, or those who are supposed to. And also, it's not just, dads who abuse or cheat or lie, just dads who abandon their families, who want nothing to do with them. How a guy can do that is beyond me. I don't understand. I could never imagine that. Because really, I mean, there's no right way to raise a child. There's no right way to be a good parent, but there's no way to be a perfect parent, but there's a million ways to be a good one. And there's no right way to raise children. But just know you do the best you can, and know that you're trying to really teach them right from wrong. Because I've had that talk with my mom before, because I was like, I feel like I have a lot of love to give to a child, and I would love to have a family of my own. Again, I feel like I'm ready emotionally, but I'm not also financially. And I know the money is not it's not the key. I know money is not the key to it, but but at the same time, it is also important. But yeah, just my heart goes out to all those people, because it again just makes me, I'm very fortunate to not be one of those victims, because I was very fortunate to have a healthy family, a happy, healthy family, and I just wish everybody could be that fortunate. So yeah, I just wanted to really address that here. But here, let me move on and finish this chapter, and then I'll be done for this Ryan Z reading video. Okay, so yeah, some people have been lucky enough to be raised in a healthy home, escaping the 1 in 4 chance of abuse, the trauma of neglect, and having to wonder where the next meal would come from. Most of the memories these people can recall are good ones, but there are a lot of children out there who haven't been so fortunate. Life lived on the streets, physical, emotional, or sexual abuse, the tragic loss of siblings or parents, their memories are filled with pain, fear, and insecurity. And those children become adults, the men and women you meet on a daily basis. Men and women whose lives are made up of more sadness than joy. That's sad. The question we have to ask ourselves is, will we be the ones who remind them of the pain in their lives? Or will we be the ones to bring the few bright spots of their years on earth to surface while making new ones they can return to in the future? While time machines haven't been invented yet, we do have the ability to travel through time. Yeah, travel through time, in quotes. A moment right here, right now, can come face to face with the beauty or pain of something that happened years ago. Just as the right flavor, aroma, or sound can take us back to places in our distant past, our actions, when filled with compassion and love, can take others back in time to cherished moments and favored memories. And when we behave out of anger and frustration, we can transport someone back in time to their episodes of trauma, abuse, and pain. This is a challenging notion because it means our responsibility for our behavior extends far beyond how it affects us. Our words and actions have incredible power, and whether we admit it or not, each one of us has taken others back to places they didn't want to be. Our words, actions, and intentions have been vehicles through which things better left in the past came rushing into the present. And I know I can definitely understand that, because that's why I'm always very careful about what I say and how I say it, because I hate to be one of those people to bring up a painful memory for somebody, or just a thought that they just don't want to think about. If I do that, and if this does this, and if this video does it for you too, I apologize. And if it was a very horrific time in your life, my heart goes out to you too. And just, I really hope and pray that you do find peace, or hopefully you have found peace. And I'm sorry to potentially bring that up. So I'm always been very careful about that, and I'm glad I have always been careful about what I say and how. Like, I know there's a lot of people who have a no filter personality, where they just say whatever goes in here comes right out here. I know there's a lot of people like that. And I don't consider myself one of those people, because again, I always think before I speak, because I don't want to see something, because I think I have done that before, where I have just said what I thought and then regret it later on, because I feel like, oh, I didn't mean to. I feel like I hurt his or her feelings. And so yeah, that's why I do that. And I'm glad that I'm glad that I do that. I'm glad I think before I speak, and am very careful about it, because I want to make sure it comes out the right way. And it's the same thing on my YouTube videos too. Like when I do live videos and I just, I sit and I just chat, I don't know what somebody has gone through, and I don't know what I might possibly bring up for people. I don't know if it's going to be, if it's a good one, then that's great. It's nice to have good memories be brought up. But if it's something that's, not so good, or, as I've said, a very horrific moment, or just a sad memory, or if it was a scary memory of whatever, it's, I don't mean to. I'm sorry if I do. And again, thoughts and prayers out to you people. But it's just, I just want to help be an example, and just know that there is somebody out there who does care. Okay? All right. Each of us is a time machine, possessing the power to transport others to specific moments based on how we choose to collide with the fabric of their lives. Like a wrecking ball, our darkness can crash into their world, bringing a host of painful memories, of painful moments into the here and now. Or our light can press into their hearts, reminding them of the good things in their lives. This is why we need to choose compassion, why we should act in love, why we must be kind, and why we need to embrace mercy. And even more than reminding someone of the good in their lives, we can be a point in space and time where someone will one day return, a moment when they knew they were loved and compassion was real, all because we gave it freely. All right, and that concludes chapter 7. So again, just see, I love that message right there. This is why we need to choose compassion. I couldn't, I could not have said that better myself. But I totally agree with that. I've even been saying that before. We need to choose the good, choose love. And I've been very fortunate to be raised to do that all my life. And I'm glad and this just encourages me all the more to do it, to continue doing it. And I hope it does the same for you guys too. Yeah. All right, but again, I just wanted to take a moment of silence, think about all those people who have unfortunately suffered abuse, neglect, any form of abuse, emotional, verbal, physical, sexual. I hope I know mostly women are the victims. The women and children, and there are some victims who are male too, but not as much as female. So yeah, all the male, female victims, both children and adults who have suffered later in life. Hopefully, may God give you peace and comfort. May God, let's join me for a little prayer. Sorry, I need to do this, okay? In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, amen. God, please, I send my heart out to all those men, women, children and adults, male and female, who have all been unfortunate victims of abuse, physical, emotional, verbal, sexual, neglect, children who have fathers who are unfaithful to their wives, and wives who have husbands unfaithful to them, children who have fathers who have just abandoned them and not want to be part of their lives. And help give their single parents too, like, give them what they need to help raise their children to be the best they can be. And I also want to send a prayer myself also to really, I hope there's so many people who can see this video and have it give them a sense of comfort too, and know that there is somebody out there who does care for them and is thinking about them right now. In your holy name, I pray to you. we pray to you. Amen. Alrighty, Rappies. Well, that'll be it for this Ryan's Day reading video. Again, I thought that was such a really powerful chapter. Thank you guys so much. I hope you guys listen to this. If you have the time, please do. Join us next time. Join me next time, sorry. I'm... what am I even talking about now? Yeah, but yeah. Next time we'll go into chapter 8, titled When the Ink Runs Out. So, all right. Thank you guys very much. Again, love you all to death. And God bless. God bless all of you. I mean that every time I say it on here. All right. Thank you guys very much, and I'll see you next time.